Gosh, this is the classic big pharma intervention, big pharma misrepresentation. Of course, it's big food and big pharma that causes the problems in the first place, right? And then they make money on the other end as well. These so-called GLP-1 drugs, I mean, they're more technically correct is GLP-1 receptor agonist drugs, as you referenced. But they're out there as GLP-1 drugs, these miracle weight loss drugs. They don't actually activate GLP-1. Isn't how many people who are buying GLP-1 drugs would think that it actually activates GLP-1? It doesn't. So GLP-1 is one of a host of gut hormones, GLP-1, PYY, GIP, gonadotropin, and others, that their purpose is to allow for nutrient uptake and transport of nutrients where they need to go. So you eat, these hormones are activated, and they do that job to get nutrients absorbed and bioavailable. So in essence, that's how you feed the machine. That's how the machine runs. It's very important. These drugs are actually not activating those hormones. They're tricking the receptors in your brain to think that they have been activated. So if you can imagine, part of that gut-brain communication, hey, you get your nutrients. When you receive your necessary essential nutrients, there's this communication that says, hey, we've gotten our nutrients. You can stop eating now. That's what they're interfering with. Now, part of the problem with obesity and half the population being overweight now is because our foods are so nutrient void and high calorie that we're having to eat more calories to get those nutrients. So our brain is saying you got to eat more before it then says stop eating, I've got my nutrients. And we're not just talking about processed food here. Even healthy foods are lower in nutrients than they were in the past. We can't get the varieties of apples that we used to. Even the organic apples are crossbred for shelf life and juiciness and eye appeal and lack all the nutrients. So the problem goes back to big food, and then big pharma steps in with what they say is the solution. I'm basically going to put this chemical in your brain for 1 week at a time to make your brain think it's got all its nutrients when it actually hasn't.
So it's actually about nutrients, not just about feeling full.
Yes, exactly. I mean, there's the gastric emptying part of it, and whatnot, and that process of the speed of gastric emptying is to allow for longer time for nutrient uptake, but it's interfering with all of that. And so what you have with people on these drugs is they don't want to eat because their brain thinks they don't need to eat. They're not hungry. But hey, I read on the internet that I still need to get my vitamins and some protein because otherwise I'm going to lose muscle mass and bone density. They'll pop that vitamin pill, and because real GLP-1, PYY, GIP has not been activated, they're not getting the full nutrient uptake. So what these drugs are literally chemical anorexia, chemical starvation, chemical malnutrition. And so with that, just on the malnutrition standpoint, you've got a lot of side effects. Again, muscle loss of bone density, a whole host of other things. Your brain lacking all the nutrients it needs and stealing it, because your brain will always win that battle, stealing it from other parts of your body. And then the fact that you are putting a synthetic in the worst sense, chemical in your brain to interfere with that second brain, that gut-brain communication, and the whole host of side effects. We've seen everything from, the gastroparesis, and you're basically freezing up at that process, not temporarily, but lifelong. Hey, now you're on the bag, right? And then blindness and all these other things, because the eyes have all these GLP-1 receptors in them, and so you got even blindness. So people are willing to do this to lose 15 or 20 pounds. That's crazy.